John Key confirmed this week what we've been suggesting on The Nation for some time, that the Conservative Party could be the coalition partner to keep National in power for a third term. This week, the Prime Minister said he'd be willing to talk to Conservative Party leader Colin Craig about a political deal. And suddenly, this small party, with around 2.8% support, is looking like, well, a very real political player. Conservative Party leader Colin Craig joins me this morning. Good morning, Mr. Craig.
Morning.
Thanks for coming in this morning. When did you last speak with John Key?
I believe it was in a makeup room in a TV, and it was a brief hello, and that was probably about best part of a year ago.
So you haven't really spoken to him? Do you speak with anyone else from National?
No, not really, although I caught Paula Bennett in the makeup room here as well, but just for highs.
So is much of your communication essentially done through the media?
Well, it is at the moment, isn't it? I mean, he gives a hint and I give a response. But I think what he's indicated is that sometime next year, probably earlier next year, he wants to start talking and firm up what he sees to be the next government and give a clear signal on that.
It's kind of like you're courting a little bit through
the
media.
It is a little bit. It's a bit interesting, isn't it? But it's been an interesting week.
OK, let's look at some of the policy issues. Do you think that the government should float Genesis?
No. Look, we think there isn't a mandate. Less than 50% of the vote last time was for parties that promoted asset sales, and in fact he's getting it through by one vote, which is Peter Dunn, who's flipped on this issue and gone against what he promised voters. So I think there's a lack of mandate, and I would like to see him get the support of the country before he proceeded with selling off those assets. OK,
given the state of the electricity market at the moment, it's possible that Genesis may not even be floated come the next election. So let's say, for example, you're in a position to help the government form a coalition. Would that be something of a deal breaker for you?
Well, look, we're just not going to support it. It doesn't mean we couldn't support National being government, but we're not going to go against something that we've promised. And at this stage, without a mandate, we can't support the sale of assets.
So that would be pretty much a deal breaker then. I mean,
well,
if they
said there was an absolute and they weren't going to do it any other way, then it probably would be. But I think it's not about absolutes. I would hope that's a discussion.
That given, you couldn't be in a coalition with them if you were going to vote against.
Well, you can still give someone confidence and supply without supporting a particular policy, and we'd be very comfortable to do that.
That's not a coalition, though, is it?
It's not a blank cheque, but we've never said we're going to give anyone a blank cheque.
Air New Zealand, then, should the government sell those shares?
Look, I think that's a different case. They bought those shares and really to help out in a situation. I think there isn't the same issue with selling those down, nor is it a highly profitable asset like the others, which it makes a lot of business sense to retain.
All right. The other issue that you've been talking about, no large land sales to foreigners, you say. So what constitutes large?
Well, look, the deals that we've criticised are ones that have sort of been up there in the millions or many millions in some cases sort of deals. We'd prefer to see joint ventures. We have no problem with working with outside interests, and we need to. We need that capital in this country. But it's a different thing to sell your productive land. And I know that New Zealanders are very cautious about this. We are too. We think, though, that we need to look to joint ventures rather than just selling them land.
Right, so 500 hectares, is that something that you would resist?
That's getting pretty large, and I would resist it. Generally speaking, I say, why can't we do a joint venture? Why can't we structure it the way the Chinese would if we were doing business there?
What does it mean then for immigration policy? Where do you sit on that?
Well, we're not far away from National on immigration policy. They've tidied that up a lot, and I think it needed tidying up. I think we should be looking to be similar, at least, in our approach as Australia. We do tend to give away the goodies too quick. They wait for people to be committed long-term residents before they, for example, give them a student loan. I think we should follow that same suit.
They don't have the best history, though, do they, Australia, when it comes to issues of immigration and race relations?
But we haven't always got it right either, and I think it's one of those things that can be difficult to get absolutely right.
What's the difference then between you and New Zealand First?
Well, there's one issue. I don't think New Zealand First would talk so moderately about that at all. I think there's a very big difference in style between myself and Winston Peters. We are, aside from those who are retired, 50% of our members, 50% of those at our conference are self-employed people. It's a very different mix from New Zealand First. And so we're more in that business space, more in that let's get productive.
But similar principles in terms of foreign ownership of land, in terms of immigration, though?
Some similarities. And people have made that comparison that we naturally will inherit their vote when Peters goes.
Is that what you're targeting, New Zealand First voter base?
And we picked up a lot of them, and we'll pick up more.
What would the Conservatives then bring to a centre-right government that we don't already have in the form of United or ACT? What would you bring?
Yeah, well, look, I would hope we can do way better than ACT and United, even if it's just the way that we as politicians behave and being true to what we got voted there for. I think our strengths, last time 50% of our list was successful business people. Not that we set that as a particular target, but I'd like to think we bring in people with proven track records who can contribute to operating government in a very efficient manner, and that'd be one of our priorities.
Could you work with John Banks in a coalition?
I could. At the end of the day, I think you can work with anyone, but you're just not going to agree on everything. You find areas to agree, and those are the things you work on together.
Is it a done deal that if you're in a position to form a coalition with National at the next election, is it a done deal that you will?
Look, it's not a done deal, and I always remind people we're still 12 months away from the next election. For us as a party that's only been going 24 months, that's a long time. And if that's as good to us as the last 12 months have been, we're going to be in a very much stronger position 12 months from now, and that has a big bearing on how we carry out the negotiations.
The likes of Winston Peters, though, will say sometimes that he prefers to be outside of a coalition because he thinks he can keep governments a little bit more honest. So were you absolutely committed to going into?
And we wouldn't rule that out. There's a lot to consider, and as I say, at 12 months away, be way too premature to give an absolute like that.
Really?
Yeah, I think it would.
12 months before an election?
I know, but in politics, a week's a long time, and the last year, things have changed dramatically for us for the better, and another 12 months like that puts us in another very different position.
Is the Conservative Party absolutely committed, though, to thinking a coalition is a good idea, or is there some fragmentation about whether or not you should be part of a coalition with National?
I don't think we've finalised that discussion even within our own party. But certainly we've always said and still do that we'd look to support the party with the highest vote. We're going to stick to that. John Key knows that, so I think his confidence is pretty well founded that we are at least going to be talking to him first and trying to have a safe and secure national government.
What portfolio would you like if you were to be in a coalition?
Look,
what would be suited to you?
Yeah, look, my areas of interest are small business, obviously property, housing, so anything in that, and I'm an entrepreneur. 5 successful businesses, love innovation. Anything in that enterprise space, Auckland housing, I'd love to have a go at solving that.
Any potential conflict of interest, though? Because you manage about $1.5 billion worth of property,
Yeah,
don't you?
I do. I don't see a potential conflict of interest, and obviously I'm now divesting myself of involvement in my companies. I've got managers doing that. But also Christchurch. Look, we've done so many things wrong fixing Christchurch. There's a lot that could be done better.
All right, Colin Craig, leader of the Conservative Party. Thank you.
Thank you very much.